Welcome back to the Conjugate Dads podcast on your radio or headphones. I'm your host, Dave Chase, with my lovely co-host, Justin Commandorius. Justin, I'm here with a freshly shaved head underneath, dude, but it's just so big for the screen that it would actually crack the screen for our listeners or viewers that watch the video portion of
That's too much biscuit in one screen.
See, I thought you were going to, when you said biscuit, I thought it was going to be like too much butter for one biscuit or something, but it's fine. I might make
cocoa
some
butter.
Right, cocoa butter. Yeah.
I gotta ask, and if I'm overstepping, of course you can cut this out, but I've always been curious, the beard, when was the last time that you shaved it completely off? And is there a particular reason why you like to have it, that long?
Yeah, to answer your question, we were actually joking yesterday because Emily sent me like an old selfie of myself as a joke. I was waiting for the bottles that we give Theo for breast milk, so I was waiting for them to clean. So I was sitting in the other room watching the NBA Finals, and she just sends me this selfie of myself from 8 years ago. And I said, "Why do you have this?" And it's like very shorter than what your beard is, like very, very, very short, or goatee. And I said, "Why do you have it?" And then I was like, I don't even know what year that is. So of course I pull up my camera roll, and that was like 2017. I'd rather not put it in this, but maybe I could find it for our listeners or viewers in that case. But yeah, I would say I think it was like 2017. My sister lived in North Carolina, and I had shaved it all the way off, completely, like no mustache, no beard. So that was probably the last time, 8 years ago. And then there's no particular reason. I think I have like a little bit of a butt chin, but not too much. But yeah, I just like really like it. I'm getting it fixed tomorrow. I'm getting it trimmed tomorrow because, we have the Father's Day holiday. So we do record this a little in advance for our listeners just to make sure we have enough time to edit it.
Have you ever gone and like had it lined up and etched and all that kind of stuff?
Yeah, we did that for the wedding, and it's Labor Day too for those who want to know when me and my wife's anniversary is. But yeah, that was like probably the last time. I don't care to have it that short, but I also know that there's a fine line between having a long beard and then having I don't know if we're allowed to say hobos anymore.
That's the word that was in my head, dude.
Yeah.
That's
the people who like live on trains and like, go from city to city, and like I'm thinking like very like early 1900s, like not, 2025. And if that's offensive to anyone, I'm sorry. I'm really not trying to be offensive. But like, when you look like you're just like how about like a mountain man, like someone who just like doesn't care, living amongst the animals.
Yeah.
I just want to make, but I'm in tech sales for anyone who's like, what else do you do? And, obviously in coaching, like nobody cares what you look like, I think, aside from having like a gang tattoo or a divisive, set of words on your body, which I don't. So I don't have to worry about that.
Yeah. It's such a time consuming thing to try and manicure a beard on your own. But then It's also like, I've seen recently that not that either of us go to a barber, because obviously we both have the same. We have the same hairstylist. But I mean, like for my hair. Yeah. So like, if you've ever tried, I taught myself how to straight blade, and
I got a nice cut here. Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, it's not my head, for my beard. No, God, no.
Okay.
Yeah. My hot dog would be all cut up in the back.
Hot dog. Yeah.
But it just is so time consuming. Like, it's incredible how I could sit there for 30 minutes, and if one etch isn't right, it's all getting shaved off. Like I just, for me, I'm very particular about it. And if I feel like it doesn't look a certain way on me, then I'm just going to let it loose. And plus there's just so much gray in there right now. It's like,
can you regrow it though in a matter of weeks? Like I do feel like a lot of the reason that people keep, specifically like younger men that don't have facial hair right away, like coming out of high school, like I always had the chin beard, the chin strap. I'm sorry, the chin strap beard. But then like, I think I saw that at the restaurant like last Saturday, and me and Emily were there, Theo, and another couple that we're super close friends with. But this guy was just like rocking the chin beard, and he's probably older than you. And I said, dude, that's like a 20-year-old fad here. Like what's going on? Number one, number two, you were like 50 plus years old.
Yeah.
But yeah, I mean, I don't know, like the regrowth like takes like weeks, sometimes months for people. So I feel like they just keep the beard.
Not for me, man. Like I'm shaving every other day. Like it gets to the point where, you know, I'm either letting it grow, and if I'm not, it's gotta get shaved. And so I'm constantly like having to, because I don't know. I look back at pictures from like 5-star when I let my hair grow a little bit, and I still had. I mean, it's all still there. I just don't. I don't like the way that my head looks with hair on it, so I shave it off.
I'm thinking for Halloween, I'm gonna go as George Costanza and just have like the giant like little piece here, but then like all the way back here just be like, you know, a little bit of hair. Like I feel like that's gonna look really good. I don't think my other, you know, job will appreciate that. I certainly don't think my close buddy Mike, who's also my boss, would appreciate that. But I'm just gonna tell him like it has to be done. Like it just has to be. Yeah.
I've often fantasized about being Kratos from God of War for Halloween, but then I think about like I have to put some significant effort and patience into letting that beard grow. If I go with I know there's like 3 different styles that he has, and you know, he's got a goatee in one, he's got nothing in one, and he's got full growth. And that full growth beard is cool.
I used to rock the God of War. Yeah, I used to play that all the time. Dude. Very good game.
But anyways, not to, you know, trail on about the beard, but I was curious about that. So
it'll get lined up. I think we screwed up. I should have recorded this podcast tomorrow after the beard was getting lined up by my female barber.
Maybe we get you to take a selfie or something, and then we put it in there.
Post
in the editing
lineup. Thanks. Shout out Anissa.
Fade give you like a before and after. Yeah. I'm curious. I mean, at least just send it to me, you know.
Is it like the Bosley, you know, like where they do the head down, and it's like just like it's like literally your head, and then it's like Fabio, and you're like, I think this is Photoshop.
Yeah.
I don't think this is real.
Yeah. So one interesting thing I was thinking on, because today we're going to talk about dynamic effort method and, you know, a little bit of repeated effort method in there too. But one thing that I was just thinking about that's just so unique is the dichotomy of time when it comes to fitness. And feel free to jump in on this with your own personal experiences. But I saw something about a quote that says, like, when you train, you're buying more time in your life, right? Like by exercising, you are creating potentially a longer life,
right?
Because of the benefits that it has for heart health and longevity and all that stuff. But there's a price there, and there's a dichotomy there in that training costs time too, right? And so it's a very unique, again, dichotomy, because you're spending time to gain time. So, you know, the unique part is that it's hours compared to years, right? So it's like, I think people kind of get this mixed up in that, you know, they tend to think like, oh, training is just so time consuming. I have to do this, I have to do that. And then all these different things kind of play into being a more fit, robust, healthy person. But the reward is also something that's not initial, right? Because that time that you're buying is further down the line. And I think for even a lot of people that are like religious, it kind of creates this gray area for them, because a lot of people treat their lives as though like they're going to go when they're going to go. And the flip side to that is, again, if you're religious and you believe in like free will, right, you're still creating your own path. Like if you want to walk in front of a truck, like that's your free will to do that, right? Like on a busy highway or something. So if you want to eat like crap and your mindset is, you know, I'm going to go when I'm going to go, so it really doesn't matter. It's like, I don't know if it works that way. I think that especially if you have kids and a spouse or something like that, you should be trying to extend your life as long as possible to ensure that you're there to provide and protect.
So did you see this? Because I actually just pulled it up. This is from technogym.com, but there's a PubMed article, which I can put on our show notes. I keep saying I'm going to do that, but I just cite it in the thing. Exercise intensity and longevity in men, the Harvard Alumni Health Study. This is from April 19th of 1995. That was when it was published. So it says here, it doesn't say when this article was published, but the Harvard Alumni Study suggests that people who exercise regularly can gain over 2 hours of life expectancy for each hour of exercise. So you can go through the whole study, but more importantly, like you said, like over the course of a lifetime, that adds 2 extra years. That means if someone exercises from 2 to 3 hours per week for 40 years, they'll gain 2 whole years of life. And several studies within scientific literature point out importance of physical activity for lengthening one's lifespan. To the most important longitudinal, there we go, studies, good job, launched 45 years ago in the USA, Nurses Health Study and Health Professionals Follow-Up Study, evidence that adhering to the minimum dose of physical activity recommended by international guidelines, 150 to 300 minutes of physical activity or 75 to 150 vigorous physical per week increases life expectancy by 21%. And those who exercise 2 to 4 times per week increase their expectation by 31%. So it does say physical activity, physically active subjects' life expectancy is up to 7 years longer than that of sedentary ones. So you're going to live longer than people who don't exercise, but you're also going to live longer in general by working out. So, I mean, we already know this. I would hope most of our listeners do know that. And if they don't, if this isn't the call to action that you need or the reasoning that you need to work out, like you said, like, do you want to be around longer for your friends and family and have a good active lifestyle or a, lifespan, right?
Yeah, you got lifespan and you have health span, right? So it's
that's
like,
what it is. Because I'm listening to Outlive while I read it.
yeah,
because I started that
great
a few
book.
months ago. Yeah, no,
Great
it's
book,
really good.
Dr.
I'm like
Peter
30%.
Peter Attia.
Yep,
Um,
MD.
I,
Yeah.
I
Lives
think
here.
he does. He has an office out of Austin, which if you can afford to go to somebody like that, that's going to be the best person that you can go to.
I cannot.
By far.
Yeah.
I don't even want to know.
Yeah, but
Probably don't take
listening.
insurance either.
Right. But listening to him the last few days, like just listening to what I've already read and then like going back and reading it, it just really hammers it home, like the 4 horsemen, which he talks about, like for anyone who doesn't know, I mean, Justin, like, we can go over it. Like, so metabolic dysfunction, I know, is one. So like if you have like diabetes, for example, like liver failure, kidney failure, like that's one. Cardiovascular issues, what do they call it? For brain?
Dementia, Alzheimer's.
No. Like he doesn't use that phrase. It's 4 horsemen death, Peter Attia.
Yeah, but it's Alzheimer's or dementia.
Yeah. Well, I'm saying it's like deterioration.
Yeah.
It's like neurological deterioration, I think is what he says. So arthrosclerotic disease. So that would be cardiovascular and cerebrovascular disease, cancers, and then neurodegenerative disease, like you just said, Alzheimer's, dementia, and then foundational diseases. So that'd be like your metabolic dysfunction, insulinemia to insulin resistance, to fatty liver, like non-alcoholic fatty liver. I was going over that last night on my walk. And then type 2 diabetes. And then you said like health span, like cognitive, physical / structural, and then emotional. But yeah, I mean, it's just like, it's killing me because I'm thinking I'm like this healthy guy and I'm like, oh yeah, I should probably get my blood work done, which we've talked about again, like the importance of getting your blood work done like at least once to 2 times a year.
Yeah, I think a lot of people, they just don't think forward, like, right? So they're not looking at the future of their life. I mean, and when I was 20, I wasn't thinking about when I'm going to be 42 and how I'm going to feel and all these different things. But now that I'm here, I'm like, thank God, right? But imagine there's a lot of people out there that you see them and you're like, man, you're only in your 50s, like you look like you're in your 70s, or you're in your 70s and you look like you're 90s, and for 99.999% of those people, it's for one of those 4 reasons or multitudes of those 4 reasons.
Right.
And so if lifespan is great, like lifespan just refers to how long you live, but health span, to simplify, is just like how well you live within your lifespan, right? So you don't want to just live a long time. You want to be mobile and active.
And we talked about this too, like you probably think you're going to live to be an octogenarian at least, right? Like 80 plus.
So my dad's dad lived to be 95. So I look at both of my parents and their health now.
Nonagenarian.
I feel like they can be. Now, granted, my dad has Parkinson's, so he got that from Agent Orange in Vietnam.
Yep.
During the Vietnam War. But with notwithstanding that, especially my mom, like even though they may not want to admit it, like I feel like they're both going to be centenarians, because they just, based on looking at them now in their 70s, and you wouldn't say, minus their gray hair, you wouldn't say, oh, those are 2 people in their 70s that are screwed. Like they're up and doing all the things.
Your dad still like works out and everything too, right?
Yeah. I mean, he's in the very beginning stages. His hand shakes and a little bit, but
he can get past it. Yeah.
Yeah, that's not like he's not like Michael J. Fox, you know what I mean?
Sure.
So but yeah, anyways, I just, you have to start to really think ahead to the life you want to live. And again, that investment in time is going to get you more time. And according to what you just read, you're doubling your time, right? So it is an investment that you're going to get back double, right? So if you were going to invest in something from a financial standpoint and you knew you were going to get your money back double, right? It's a sure bet. You would invest in it, right? Why aren't we doing that specifically as Americans? Why aren't we doing that with our health? And I think a lot of people want to, but the time dichotomy always is front and center of their mind. I'm losing time with my kids. I'm losing this. I'm losing that. I'm like, your kids are in school for half the dang day for most of the year. Like, let's make time. Right.
You can make them part of it too, right? I mean, who says that, like, just because, like you said, like, Jack, like he goes to golf camp, like who says you can't be moving your butt while he's at golf camp?
Yeah.
I mean, obviously, if you trust the teacher, the instructor to coach him, why don't you go take a walk during this time? My mom would literally set herself up and talk to the other moms while we're playing baseball. She didn't just sit there. And if she couldn't go, it's because she was working. And if she's working, she's moving around. So it's like, you can get it done, like at any level. You don't have to be deadlifting 500 pounds.
No, and ultimately,
health span up.
Ultimately, this is just going to fall back to like, get the garage gym. Get some kettlebells, get some dumbbells, start somewhere, and you can make a difference, not only in your life, but the lives of your children. Like, we could go on for hours about this subject.
Just part of
it is like, do you want to be able to carry your kids, when they're teenagers still, if they need you? Like, come on. There's just so much good that comes out of being strong and being fit. Like, I don't have to continuously beat a dead horse about how I can lay 50 bags of mulch in 45 minutes because I'm fit enough to do that. That's just GPP, right?
My neighbor was talking to me about that too, how he threw out his back, and I said, your back, I wasn't trying to be mean, but I was like, your back hurts because the other parts of your body need to be in better shape. It's not
I mean, again,
problem,
there's just so much that goes into this subject, but again, like, you can start to gain some ground simply just by, again, the easiest thing to do is to have some equipment in your home that where time now becomes kind of like irrelevant because your kids can be out there with you, and that pays them dividends too.
Yeah. And I do think we should probably do an episode on like GPP, like what does that look like? That might not even be like, not necessarily zone 2 cardio because we already covered that, and not necessarily dynamic effort, which is today, and then max effort's a completely different thing. But what are some GPP exercises, or not exercises maybe by trade, but like, what is GPP? Carrying your groceries? Like, I mean, that is GPP, right?
It's your ability
carrying
to
your
do
son on your back, or
Yeah.
one of your, I know you have a daughter too, is like carrying your daughter while you walk, like even if it's just down the hallway, it's like that is GPP.
It's just your ability to do work, right? So we want to enhance your ability to do work.
Yep.
It's just that simple. So without further ado, speaking of work, the dynamic effort method there's a lot that goes into that, but if I want to relate it to work, I would say, and you would probably agree with this, that most of the dynamic effort days that we have are the most grueling. They're the hardest. They're the most taxing in terms of like your cardiovascular system because of how fast we're moving within sets, in between sets, with the rest intervals and all that kind of stuff. So really to define the dynamic effort method, and then obviously we will explain how we use this for the general population and why it's important. But the dynamic effort method is really just a technique that focuses on lifting submaximal weights with maximal speed and acceleration. This was popularized by Louis Simmons of Westside Barbell, to which became like a cornerstone of the conjugate method. However, you could go as far back to Mel Siff, Zadiorsky from Super Training, or from, what's the other one? Science and Practice of Strength Training. And you will find the dynamic effort method. The dynamic effort method is extremely popular. I would say it's more popular in the sports performance world than it is even in the powerlifting world, because its use is heavily debated on whether it's necessary for like raw powerlifters. I believe that it is, but this isn't a powerlifting podcast. This is a life podcast. So essentially what we're doing is we're using, again, the submaximal loads, and we're moving those loads as fast as humanly possible. So say on the bench press, we would use anywhere from 40 to up to 75%, depending on if you're using accommodating resistance or not. And that's of your 1 rep max. And the key is to move the weight as fast as humanly possible through a full range of motion. Again, the intent to accelerate the bar is more important than how fast the actual bar is moving in whatever it is that you're doing. Okay, so when it comes to the dynamic effort method, we want to think about like the rate of force development, how we're if we're building strength, we also want to sharpen how fast we're able to show that strength, and that becomes power essentially. So we want to really just try to produce a large amount of force in a very short amount of time, which again is not only crucial for sports performance, but it's also crucial for the general population. Hey, Dave, in your mind, like what's something that you think of would be a really good reason that somebody would want to, outside of like the health reasons, like why would somebody want to still be able, as they age, to be able to produce force rapidly?
Right. I mean, emergency, your kid falls out of the air and he's like on the little jungle gym, the monkey bars. I mean, I was able to move that quick to grab Theo, my son.
Yeah.
Or, I mean, geez, someone passes out. You can go grab them real quick or pick them back up or whatever it is. I mean, you should be able to squat down, pick up your kid, and then get out of there. So I guess emergency, I would say, like functional fitness.
How about
another one?
How about tripping and falling?
Sure, yeah. Regaining balance.
Yeah. So if we all stumble, we're all klutzes in our own right. And I tend to have my moments where I'll trip because I'm just not paying attention. I'm moving too fast or whatever, but I never will fall flat on my face. I'll catch myself real fast. And all that is just your body being able to produce and then absorb force. So you're not only are you less likely to fall, but if you do fall and you have that robustness about you and your ability to absorb that, you're not going to get hurt. Sure. And we know with people later in life, when they fall and they break their hip or they break their knee or something like that, or they throw out their back, like they're just less likely to have a longer life because that kind of throws things off for them. So using any type of method that requires you to kind of ride that force velocity curve in your training. And I know for a lot of people, this is going to sound kind of a little bit woo woo and out there, and they may not understand the science of it, but the simplicity of it is like, if I need to react to something quickly, or if I need to scale a fence, or jump up onto something to avoid something. I mean, it could be any number of things, right? Like I want to cross this, I'm out hiking and I want to get across this stream, but I don't want to get my boots wet. Right. Can I jump the 2 feet to get over the stream? Yep. Or am I going to fall flat on my face and blow out my ACL, right? Well, I would heavily argue that someone that trains at least, let's say, once a week using some of these practices and these methods, they're going to be a lot more likely to sustain the pull of gravity when they land, but also to be able to move your body weight off of the floor, right? So like the stronger you are, the more likely you are to have better relative strength to your body weight.
And you can say too, like, I don't know how much you weigh, but like I'm in like the 227 to 230 range, right? I hadn't weighed myself this week yet. But I mean, if I fall down at 230 pounds on a dime, that's going to hurt. So, I mean, being able to catch yourself even on 1 foot will functionally make your life better when you're walking and you trip, like you said. Like I got the house slippers on right now, and I trip all the time. It's like you said, it's like you're not paying attention, you're grabbing something, you got kids' toys everywhere. We got 2 dogs, so there's dog toys everywhere. They don't know how to pick them up, apparently. I have tried to train a Pepito, as we call him, our male dog. And he just doesn't do it. So, it's okay. I haven't trained him, but I wish I could on that. But, you fall down at 230 pounds. Imagine we're 300 pounds. That's why the weighted vest walks have been great, because then I take off the weighted vest and I think that I feel like I'm 180 pounds again. I'm just by taking the weight off. So I can't even imagine someone who is in the threes trying to balance themselves and falls down, or, is trying to hike or walk. And I mean, that's certainly not shaming anyone. It's just, I'm sure that is more difficult.
Yeah. I mean, that just goes back to like relative strength to your body, right? Can you do a pull up? Can you do a push up? Can you do a sit up?
Yeah.
Can you do a dip, a body weight dip? Like there's so many things. But again, with that, the dynamic effort method, it was created initially or used initially by Louis as a way to essentially to not lift heavy, because you can't train heavy all the time. The body just gets destroyed from heavy weight training all the time. So one thing that they looked at was like, okay, well, we want to apply this. How do we apply this method to what we're doing? Again, specific adaptations on imposed demands, right? So like what is it that you're doing, and why is the thing that you're doing important? And we want to use that method as a way to improve whatever it is that's important to us. So for him, he found in his lifters, that they couldn't lift heavy all the time. Okay. So in comes the dynamic effort method. Okay. How does this benefit strength? Well, the strength is measured in time, right? And so the faster I can move something, the more sharpened my rate of force development becomes, the better my brain to muscle speed increases, right? My neuromuscular enhancement. And so when you think about being able to just make a sharp movement, right? Something that's very fast, that's just your ability to produce force rapidly. And that's what this method does. And that's why it's important. It's also important because as we age, the first thing that tends to take a drop off is not overall strength. Your absolute strength, you can still continue to get strong well into your 60s, but it's your ability to absorb and produce force rapidly that declines rapidly. Okay. So if you want to offset the negatives of not being able to absorb and produce so much force in life anymore, you have to train it. Okay. And it just becomes necessary. Again, if we're looking at like, what's heavy compared to like the light percentages for dynamics, again, 50 to 75% of what your 1 rep max would be, what would be heavy, right? So like 90 to 100% of what you can lift would be the percentage that you would use to determine if my max bench was 200 pounds and 50% of that is 100 pounds, I would use 100 pounds for my dynamic effort movements. Okay.
Yeah.
So
I just wanted to make sure I just wrote that chat to you. I wanted our listeners to know, like, when we're talking like Justin benches, what's your bench right now? Like 450?
Probably close to that.
Okay,
yeah.
Let's just say 450. Like 250 is still 250, but like you said, it's relative for you. And that's why it's so hard to say, like, please, anyone listening to this podcast, the amount of weight you have on the bar is just specific to you. And 100 pounds is still 100 pounds. And don't think you're a wimp for like the first time you ever got 225. Like, that's awesome if you got 225. I saw Kenny's son hit 225 for the first time on bench. Like, that's awesome. He's also what, like 180 pounds or something?
Yeah, he's a freshman.
Yeah, he's a freshman in high school. He's 180 pounds, or let's just say he's 180 pounds. That's awesome for him. And what's he going to hit, by the time he's a senior? I mean, the dude's going to be a beast. Don't compare his 225 to Kenny. Kenny's how old? He's your age?
Yeah.
So, of course, I mean, Kenny wouldn't do that. But, like, I'm sure people on the internet are going to be like, oh, man, he just hit 225. It's like, dude, you're a moron. Like, good for him. I don't know his son's name, but like, good for him.
I would expect somebody like that at that age to do, it would be 60 pounds a year is what he'll gain in his maxes.
Yeah, so, which is awesome.
If you've got 3 more years, that's 180 pounds. So that's 405 by the time he's a senior.
And then that's still amazing, and even
less than 1% of high school kids.
Right, relative strength, and 405 is definitely still that's when you go, hey, 405 is 405, but also dude's been working at it.
Yeah. So again, that method really comes into play for those two main reasons. Again, because we can't lift heavy all the time, right? It is deemed as more of like an athletic method or exercise because we are trying to move things as fast as possible, which I also feel like most of the Gen Pop should be kind of aiming towards in a safe manner, is using this method. Now, yes, you do have to have the prerequisite strength and the prerequisite abilities in form in order to use this method. If it's somebody that's a newcomer, they're probably going to be using more of like repeated effort method on this day, which I do have a lot of people do. And what we'll do is, instead of using like the dynamic effort method with barbells on like the deadlift, the box squat, or the bench, we might do a landmine or a landmine press or a landmine jerk or a box jump or a dumbbell clean or a kettlebell clean in place of something that's going to be a little bit more difficult for the average person that's not very athletic yet. Okay.
I was just going to say athletic movements, dude. Like, I like everything I'm hearing. Like, those are some cool stuff right there.
So
training, I mean, that's some athletic shit.
Yeah. And again, like those are hard things to teach versus I do have a few people that they like Olympic lifts. So I will give them what they like, because what kind of person would I be if I didn't? And so they either power cleans or split jerks or something like that. We will use that within that method because, number one, it's safer because it's lighter. Okay, the percentages are less. And we know that Olympic lifts are very fast. They happen at faster than 1 meter per second, which when we talk about, this is important too, when we talk about the intent to move the bar fast, if it's too heavy, it's just the intent can still be there, but it's not necessarily going to be fast enough. So again, the context matters here, but the reality of it is that bar speed, the minimum it needs to be moving is like 0.8 meters per second. Now, I don't expect everybody to have a Tendo unit or a Virtruve or some way of measuring the bar velocity. So maybe we can just drop in like a little clip of me moving a bar fast so people have an example of how fast it should look when they're lifting.
I figured out the videos on this thing.
Oh, well, whatever. Go to my Instagram page and look at my videos. You'll see fast.
I was looking at our commandments, Justin. I don't see give your clients stuff they like. I see commandment number 3, if you want to get stronger, do the things you hate. Is it commandment 11 or we should have a coach's commandments episode.
Yeah, I mean, I think maybe an extra commandment, because it doesn't have to be necessarily 10, but is lift with intent. That's a great one.
Might be number 11. Yeah.
But certainly, like, if we're gonna talk about that, like, as a coach, we know people avoid the things that they don't enjoy or don't like doing.
Yeah, I had this conversation with, Sarah.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But if you continuously give people all the things that they don't like and you don't give them anything that they like doing, it's like, what's wrong with you?
I'm more likely to not do it and just skip
the
entire workout, or skip what I don't like because you're not even giving me what I do like. At least give them a little bit of what they like, so then they'll be more open to trying something new that they know is a weak point, and going back to explaining the why, but also like, hey, like, I'm going to give you what you like, but you got to give me what I need you to do.
Yeah. So again, I think that's an easy way for people that have come to me from CrossFit and they still want to scratch those Olympic lifts itch, right? I will give it to them in a manner in which it needs to be done appropriately, not as a conditioning circuit, right? But as a means to improve rate of force development. And it keeps them happy and it's fun. And I mean, I like Olympic lifts. I don't think they're the best at all for the general population. But if somebody has the ability they come to me with the ability to do the Olympic lifts, then I'll throw them that every now and again, usually in a dynamic effort fashion. So again, the benefits are there, right? We're looking at your ability to increase explosiveness and power, which again, that's just your ability to generate strength fast. So think like jumping, sprinting, and throwing. These are all things that we should all be doing at some point, or might have to do at some point in life. There's also that, like I was mentioning, that improved neuromuscular coordination because of the rapid speed of the movement. The contractions are extremely forceful, and this forces your body to communicate faster between your brain and your muscles. And that leads to more efficient, more coordinated movement patterns if you're using really, really, really good form. Okay. The other aspect of the dynamic effort method, like I spoke about initially, as it was brought in because you can't train heavy all the time, even though it is still an intense method, we're reducing the risk of overtraining compared to constant maximal or submaximal loads that we're using all the time. And we're reducing the risk of overtraining simply because we're using lighter loads. But again, the intent is still there, which does make it a bit more difficult. And then you add in, again, if the person has the prerequisite GPP, we're going to be using rest intervals so that you're moving from point A to point B very fast. So those rest intervals are going to be anywhere from 30 to 60 seconds max, right? Depending on the movement. I think, box squatting, typically what you'll see is, we use 3-week waves for dynamic effort method, by the way. So we're rotating, same thing with max effort. We're rotating those every 3 weeks. So let's just say we're doing a box squat. Week 1 is going to be 50% of your 1 rep max plus 25% accommodating resistance. If you don't have bands or chains for accommodating resistance, then you just use 70%. Okay, 5% every week. So you see a 5% increase in weight every single week. So you go 55 or 50, 55, 60, 70, 75, 80. Or you could even do 65, 70, 75 to make sure that you're not getting into that submaximal range. Okay. The importance of the percentages is I can't state it enough, because if you're using too much weight, it's not going to move fast enough. But also, you're not going to switch those percentages until you establish a new 1 rep max. Okay. But after that 3-week wave is over, you're going to switch, right? So maybe I go from a back box squat to a front box squat after 3 weeks, and so on and so forth. We're going to rotate those in and out, but you have to have a pretty good idea of what your 1 rep max is in order to establish your percentages.
And like you said too, like even to get into the nitty gritty, and I was having this conversation with Sarah too. Shout out Sarah if you listen to this episode when we post it. Switching those movements, like we were talking about her love for barbell low bar back squat, and I was like, dude, you got to switch up and throw in different types of squats, because then the best way to be better at squats is to do all types of squats, right? And do other supplemental movements and accessory movements that are going to enhance your squat. But I think that like the box squat is easily the best, like dynamic effort, lower body exercise, like in my opinion, ever created. Like that's just me. Obviously, if you want to say I'm wrong, that's fine. And then also, when you said the 1 rep max on what? Because then if you're doing a box squat, you need to make sure you have a 1 rep max on a box squat. And if you're doing dynamic effort with front squats, you better have a front squat 1 rep max or an estimated 1 rep max. Like everything has to make sense. I have a little like chalkboard where I wrote down every single max I have, and some of them are estimated, and then some of them are true 1 rep maxes.
What a lot of people will do is, if they're staying true to like the West Side Conjugate method, they'll use that week 1 max effort lift or submax effort lift to get themselves an estimated 1 rep max, and like then that will be the movement that they use for the next 3 weeks,
which is fine.
Yeah, then at the beginning of the next wave, whatever dynamic effort movement you want to use for that week, because you're going to do your max effort before you do, like most likely before you do your dynamic effort method.
Sure.
So you're going to use that as whatever movement you want to do for. So if it's like, I need to max front box squat, because that's going to be the percentage that I'm going to use. Because again, day to day, your maxes are going to be, are going to fluctuate, right?
Timing of training too. If you train at, what time do you train? Like 10 a.m.
Something like that. Yeah.
Yeah. If you trained at 5 p.m. today because you had a bunch of stuff to do with the kids, because I know it's summertime, like you can't expect your body to be. You could, but you could be in the same frame, but like most likely, probably not.
The more likely situation is that again, at the bare minimum of the bare, if the weight is moving fast, then you're good, right? It doesn't have to be that complicated.
I meant for max effort. For most max effort days, you need to be training in the same space if you want to measure off the 1 rep max.
Yes.
Yeah.
But what doesn't work is if like, oh, I'm going to use my box squat percent from 6 months ago. It's like, maybe take 10% off of that. Yep. Because we don't know where it's. So that's a good rule of thumb is like, if you tested a max a month ago and you want to use that percentage for your dynamic effort method percentage, take 5 or 10% off of that. Because again,
number 12, adjust percentages accordingly.
We as humans tend to kind of like over exaggerate things like, yeah, bro, my bench was 500 back in 1999. It's like, well, it ain't no more, dude. But again, like just things accordingly, and 5 or 10% could be 45 pounds if you have an over 400-pound squat.
Yeah.
Right. So that's a big difference.
Well, it could fall under commandment number 7, set up for safety, or be honest with yourself, number 4. But I do think percentages is definitely like accordingly, because if you hadn't trained in 3 weeks because you went to Europe, you should probably take 20% off.
5%. And if it's been a month or more, then it's 10%, right? It's like, you just got to be smart. But again, like Dave Tate says the easiest thing to do is start with a fairly light weight and then make incremental jumps until you notice a slight decrease in bar speed and then stay there. That's the easiest way to find out where you are from a dynamic effort method. And again, this goes back to that whole ACT N3 thing where it's, people can find out if, and I've mentioned this before, but people can find out if they're more fast twitch compared to slow twitch based on 80% of their 1 rep max for reps. So if you do,
what am I?
Like, let's say 80 to 85% of your 1 rep max and you can get 6 reps or more, you're more slow twitch.
I think I'm slow.
Maybe.
Yeah,
I don't want to.
I always forget.
That would frustrate me if somebody was like, "You're slow twitch," but I know what I am, so it's not a big deal. But whereas for me, 80-85% is going to be like 3 to 5 reps, depending on how up there in percentage I get.
Depends on the movement for me. I would say
that too. Yeah. So again, like how good a shape are you in? Yeah. Again, context matters. It depends, right? But again, everybody, just because you're using less weight for dynamic effort method doesn't necessarily mean that like, oh, your max is lower than what you think it is. It just means that all we're trying to do is produce force rapidly. That's all it is, right? We're just trying to move this bar with the best form and the most intent as possible. And for a lot of people, if you take, because the next thing we need to say is like, okay, well, what's the rep scheme here, right? So like bench press, the standard, it can be one of 2 things, 9 sets of 3 or 8 sets of 3 or 5 sets of 5. Okay. For you out of shape people that get lazy, or if somebody that's trying to increase a little bit more of like intra-set time under tension, that 5 sets of 5 works really, really good too. Again, this is all based on Prilepin's chart, right? So the optimal amount of reps and the optimal amount of sets based on Prilepin's chart tells us that within that percentage, so 50 and 25% is 75%. So within 75%, the reps per set is anywhere from 3 to 6. And the optimal reps is anywhere from 18 to 24. It's written down in the book. It's in every book that's ever been made for strength conditioning.
I'll put it on here again. We've done it before. But I actually had this conversation with her. I told her the reps matter the most, the total reps. And I said, you literally can go, it's 5 by 5. It's 25. Yeah. So it's 18 to 24, like you said. So then same thing, 8 times 3, 24, 9 times 3, 27.
So here's the other thing.
25 is only a 4 rep difference.
Here's the other thing though. Like, Dave, why wouldn't I just do 3 sets of 9 instead of 9 sets of 3? Why? But why?
The percentage is the percentage.
The percentage is the same, right? So like, why is it 9 sets of 3 then? Okay. Well, I want you to think about this for a second. Okay. It's because of the percentage. Number one. If you try to do 9 reps with 75%, those last couple reps are going to be grinders. They're not going to be fast.
You're taking out the entire reasoning behind doing it. You're missing the entire point of the dynamic effort, which is lift with intent as fast as possible. And at 9 reps, like you said, the speed is now slowing down so much that I know it's easy to just do 3 sets of 9, but you got to just do the 9 sets of 3. And
And
you're
I
moving
think
it
that's
so quick that actually is going to go so quick, you're not even going to think about it.
I think that's where the whole 5x5 kind of came in at the end, because
Yeah.
Louis got frustrated, and he said this himself. He got frustrated with people being out of shape and they're resting too much in between sets, and he's like, "No, we just need to hurry up and get this done."
Yeah.
So it's 5x5 with 60 seconds rest in between sets.
Yeah.
It's a lot harder.
A 5x5. I think a 5x5
it's a lot harder.
Good. With 60 seconds, there's nothing wrong with it.
Yeah, so like
8 minutes, right? For 9 sets of 3. Isn't that
it's like 8 to 10 minutes. So
you can't do a barbell exercise in 10 minutes, you're out of shape.
Again, this is crazy. They use statisticians, right? If let's just say you're using 225, and you're doing 9 sets of 3, so 225 times 27, you're doing 6,000 pounds of volume in 8 minutes, right? I mean, it's so fast. And then you're jumping right to the speed deadlifts or whatever. So again, there's no method that gives you that much amount of work in a very short period of time.
And you said like lift with intent, like as our like number 11 commandment, but also like have your fucking playlist ready. Sorry, rant incoming. Have your playlist ready. Tell people that you love that you're training. Because if you're actually working toward a goal, whether it's to like get bigger quads or have a bigger chest, like you can send a quick text, but have that rest timer going. Like, and I know I said in another clip, like don't text on your phone or don't go on social media. If you do, make sure that you're on your rest time where it goes off, you're under bar. Let's go. You're under the load.
So you brought up something that triggered my brain. So what would somebody say, or what would somebody do that's like, okay, well, this is all good and great, but I'm trying to really just focus on building muscle, and we know strength is a component of building muscle. Why do I need to care about this method, and or what adjustments do we need to make to the method to kind of represent that goal of trying to just focus on building muscle? Well, my first answer is you're going to want to use 5x5 or 6x6 instead of using 9x3 or 8x3 or 12x2.
I talked about this yesterday because I was getting really into the nitty gritty of it. Like the aesthetic feel of it, the 5s, 6s, and 8s. Like, I mean, that's like the fun stuff too.
And the other thing we just said was that the immense amount of volume that you're accruing in a very short period of time, you could just say, okay, time under tension. If you look at what people typically take in the amount of time to complete an exercise within the amount of sets and reps that they have, and you compare that to what we're doing with like the dynamic effort method, and I'm not lacking in muscle, you're not lacking in muscle, right? So again, it's one of those things where I don't think people are thinking about the method in itself in the right way. You're telling me to move the bar fast. Correct, right? Because the faster we move it, the faster we're going to have that motor unit recruitment, right? The better our neuromuscular or brain to muscle coordination is going to be, right? All those things are going to play a big factor in gaining muscle, right? So really the adjustment just becomes, the mindset of what it is that you're doing. Because again, like all of those things, I don't want to recruit slow fibers. I want to recruit fast ones because those are the leanest muscle fibers anyways, right? Those are the white ones. Those are the ones that we want. And so if you look under like whenever they look at muscle fiber, right, the fast twitch ones are the white fibers. Those are the ones that are the leanest and the most functional. And those are the ones that we want, right? So the other thing is adjusting the sets and reps to meet like what your needs are. So yes, you might go into a little bit of repeated effort method more. But again, we're using the dynamic effort method as this like small portion of the entire workout, which the rest of the workout is going to be all repeated effort method stuff, high volume stuff anyways. So
and I know we talked about max effort last week, but this week, a couple of questions for our, that you could answer for our listeners. Max effort, we did talk about it, 72 hours in between. You can do max effort, I would agree on this, 2 days in a 7-day period or within a 4-day period, right? Because 72 hours. How often can someone do a dynamic effort day?
It's 24 hours. So very small workouts is 12 hours. Think about if today I do tricep extensions, tomorrow I could come back and do bicep curls or something like that. But with the dynamic effort method, so for me, for instance, I'm going to do dynamic effort method on Friday for lower, And then on Saturday, I can turn around and perform dynamic effort
a different
method
area.
upper.
Right. Yeah.
At a high level.
So you do max effort lower on Monday, Wednesday max upper. I'm sorry, lower conditioning Tuesday. I'm sorry. Lower max effort on Wednesday, Thursday lower conditioning, Friday dynamic lower, and then Saturday dynamic upper, and then Sundays
usually Thursday is just a very steady state for recovery zone 2 type of day. Yeah.
Okay. So that's one way to do it. And then I'm on a 3-day strength. So max upper on Monday. Tuesday is zone 2 conditioning. Wednesday is max lower. Thursday, steady state, like you said. Friday, dynamic full body.
Right.
Yeah.
So how would we do a
Saturday conditioning?
A full body like dynamic effort method? So really you're just picking between, it could be a speed squat or a speed deadlift, and I believe the West Side guys, the grapplers and the MMA, lacrosse and baseball, they're doing all three. So they'll do speed squat right into speed pull, and then speed bench, and then some accessories after that, and then potentially some jumps or something like that. But how would I prefer to do that? I think for the general population, it really depends. I kind of lean more to the box squats or the speed deadlifts are easier to execute than speed bench. A lot of people just don't have that prerequisite snappiness to really do the speed bench. So what I'll do is give them something that I know that they can do fast, and the form's going to be good. So think of some kind of landmine movement or a kettlebell movement or something like that, or even a push press. And then I will have them do either a speed squat or a speed deadlift. Again, if they're on that dynamic effort template. And then after that's just going to be the repeated effort method for all the accessories.
And I do think that no matter what your aesthetic feel is, like that you want to look like, it all goes back to, hey, you want to build muscle, you want to get better, at training. I mean, there's a ton of different ways to work out, but the max effort method is the best way to get freaking strong and powerful. The dynamic effort is the best way to be in better shape and get lifting with intent. There's no better way to show how intent focused you are at training than doing dynamic effort, even if it's just one day a week like I do. And I actually kind of miss doing the second day. But then what happens? I text you and I say, damn, I'm gassed. And you say, well, you're doing 2 max effort, 2 dynamic. That's a lot of stress on the body. Why do you think you're tired by Saturday afternoon when you go on that walk? Well, because, it's a lot. It's a lot of effort, right? Not to, have a pun in there.
You have to have a very low stress job where you can recover a lot in order to do that as a Gen Pop, in order to do that 4-day template, right? It's one of those things where I don't have a lot of people, unless they're like super type A and they do have those low stress jobs, that are doing the 4-day strength and then 2 or 3 day conditioning. Whereas like the template that you're on, it makes a lot more sense for your situation with the newborn and all that kind of stuff.
And you can move it around too. If you missed a Friday for whatever reason, you can just push it to Saturday. If you miss a Friday dynamic day, I'm not doing it because I got to hit Saturday. I'm not trying to screw that up.
Well, that's the thing that's great about it too, is like, okay, if something happens Friday, I can always bump it to Saturday or even Sunday, because it's really not going to impact.
That is true, because it's a different area. So you could do that in theory if you wanted to. But I feel like you have people, like some clients for you, some for me, that say, I just push it to the weekend, and then the weekend hits and they go, oh crap, I actually forgot I'm planning, a wedding, or I'm out of town this weekend because my kid's at a softball tournament. You got to have all your stuff in order and plan your week out. Just like people say, oh, I do work on Sunday afternoon or Sunday night. I was talking to Gage about this. Loyal listener Gage, and he said, like, I plan my week on Sunday night when my kid goes to bed. And I said, that's actually really smart, and that's why no matter what, but he's not just planning work week, he's planning his life week too, right? His personal life. And I do think that some people forget, you got to watch all your videos for your training in your app. You got to hit up your coach with any questions, even if they just text you the next day. You still need to know what's going on. So don't just plan your professional life, plan your personal stuff too well in advance. Have a calendar, in your house or on your phone, where you can make sure, like, you will budget that time, like you said, very beginning, right? You're losing time. Well, you're buying time, right? Because now everything's scheduled out. So then when you have Father's Day coming up, you already know, hey, I can get up at 7 and get my walk in, and then like by the time the kids want to go to breakfast, I've already knocked out everything that I need to do.
And the great thing about the method is, we're getting the 2 of those days, dynamic effort and dynamic lower, effort upper and lower. Those are 45-minute training sessions. Sure. It's fast, it's rapid. So we're not playing around. We're getting it in, getting it done, and then that's the end of it.
Yep. And training and logging your stuff too. The importance of the logbook. I think we went over this in episode 2. But also timing your workouts. Even on the logbook, if you don't log it in an app, just write down the time you started and then write down the time you ended. And then now the next week you do it. I was just doing a conditioning day Tuesday, and I think I knocked off 3.5 minutes for doing 10 rounds. And I was super proud of myself. I said, hey, 3 minutes isn't a lot, but if you think about it, that's an entire extra round of rest.
That's progress.
Yeah. Even if it's just 10 seconds, I mean, 1 second, 2 seconds, whatever it is, celebrate those little wins and see how you can be in better shape.
Precisely.
Any closing thoughts on dynamic effort?
I feel like, again, and this is just from a personal perspective, but the method is amazing. I've used the method along with the max effort method for the last, 20 years, and I've never gotten away from it because I get joy out of moving the bar fast. And I think if you go into any gym and you watch people lift, no one's doing doing the thing fast. It's just not happening, right? So if you go into a gym and people aren't changing, they're not seeing a difference in their results or in their physique, maybe that has some kind of offset correlation to why they're not getting results, and they're just going through the motions versus this method in particular. You've got one method that makes you try as hard as you possibly can to lift as much weight as possible for that day. And then you have another method that we're using that is sharpening how fast you can show your strength, right? So those are 2 very unique things that I think a lot of people don't take into consideration in the general population, right? Yeah. We can move fast. We're designed to do it. And the more of that you do, the better it's going to be for you.
Wouldn't you like to say, like, just a closing note, do you think of max effort as like the real meat and potatoes of it all? Like, hey, I got to eat a ton of protein. I got to eat a ton of carbs to hit my calories. But don't you feel like the dynamic effort is all your vitamins and your micronutrient things that are very important that a lot of people, nutritionally speaking, will just go, I don't want to do that.
Yeah, one supports the other. Right. Like you have to have that supportive.
Get better. It's gonna, they're gonna work with each other. So
yeah. For you construction or architect people, right? Like max effort method is the foundation to your house, and then your brick and your mortar and your nails and your tools are the dynamic effort method.
Sure. Yeah, so let's make that house impenetrable. Let's make it a house that can live for 100 years.
Exactly.
Going back to what we said, like the nanogenarians, octogenarians, and then the centenarians, which, shoot, I hope both of us are centenarians.
And the other thing is this method allows for you to have longevity in your lifting career, right? So I can use this method until I just can't lift weights anymore, right? You can always adjust the percentages to meet you where you are.
I don't want to get to that point where I can no longer do any weight training. When that day hits, I don't know what I'll do. Maybe I'll figure out something, but I hope that day never comes.
Yeah, amen.
Well, thanks everyone for listening to another episode of the Conjugate Dads podcast with Justin Commodores. I'm Dave Chase, and we hope that you have already given us a follow, rated our show 5 stars on Spotify. If you're not on Spotify, listen on YouTube. And for all you sponsors out there, we're poor, we love money. So if you want to sponsor us, that would be great. And again, thanks for listening, and we'll talk to you all next time.